Something is spreading across social media, and it's triggering anger, confusion, and completely different interpretations depending on who is watching it. A short viral clip shows a tense street confrontation involving foreign nationals and local groups. In seconds, it turns into a global talking point, with people attaching their own narratives, their own frustrations, and in some cases, very dangerous assumptions about entire communities. But here's where things get uncomfortable, because what you think you're seeing in that video might not actually be the full story. And what people are saying it represents could be fueling a much bigger misunderstanding that goes far beyond one incident, one country, or one group of people. Before we go deeper into this investigation, take a second to like the video and subscribe. Not for hype, but because stories like this are being shared fast, often without context, and it's important to separate what is confirmed from what is being assumed.
What are you here for? You here to eat? What do you want to do? We want to Why? What do you want to
Don't touch me!
Now, what exactly happened? Across platforms like TikTok, X, and Facebook, a video began circulating showing a confrontation between groups of people in what is being described as a public space. In the clip, tensions escalate quickly. Voices are raised, people move toward each other, and there is visible confrontation. Some online users have labeled the scene as an example of hostility toward foreign nationals, while others claim it shows resistance or self-defense against perceived wrongdoing. But here's the first major problem. The video itself does not clearly confirm where exactly it was filmed, who all the individuals involved are, or what led to the confrontation in the first place. And yet, within hours, it had already been turned into a global debate about race, power, fear, and inequality. Some online narratives push the idea that local groups behave aggressively towards certain foreign communities, but act differently when faced with other groups. Others strongly rejected that framing, calling it misleading, inflammatory, and based on selective interpretation of a chaotic moment. So the question becomes not just what happened in the video, but why everyone is so quick to assign meaning to it. But here's where things start to get even more complicated. To understand why this clip exploded online, you have to look at the broader background. In several countries across the world, including parts of Southern Africa, there have been recurring tensions between local communities and foreign nationals, often linked to issues like unemployment, competition for informal jobs, housing pressure, and strained public services. These tensions have, at times, led to protests and isolated incidents of violence, which have been widely condemned by governments and civil society groups. At the same time, social media has created a new layer of amplification. A single clip, removed from its original context, can be reposted thousands of times with completely different captions, each one shaping how viewers interpret what they are seeing. So, when this particular video surfaced, it didn't enter a neutral environment. It entered an already sensitive space filled with historical grievances, economic frustration, and political debate. And that matters. Because, without that context, people fill in the blanks themselves. Now, let's break down the sequence of how this story unfolded online. First, the video appears on a small account, likely without much attention. Within minutes or hours, it gets reposted by larger pages with captions suggesting it shows locals confronting foreigners. Then the framing begins to shift depending on the page sharing it. One version suggests it is an example of injustice. Another frames it as resistance. Another turns it into a racial argument. And another uses it to make sweeping claims about entire populations. What started as a short, unclear clip becomes a symbolic battleground. But here's the turning point that changed everything. Influential accounts began reacting to it without verifying details. Comment sections fill with emotional responses. Some viewers express outrage, others push back strongly. And soon, the discussion is no longer about the video itself, but about what people believe it represents about society. This is where misinformation thrives. Because once a video becomes emotionally charged, facts often become secondary. But there's another layer that few people are talking about. In many viral incidents like this, what is missing is the full timeline before the camera started rolling. We don't see what led to the confrontation. We don't see earlier interactions. We don't see whether there were misunderstandings, provocations, or even unrelated triggers that escalated the situation. We only see the peak moment of conflict, and that creates a dangerous illusion that the moment we see is the whole truth. So, what are the unanswered questions in this case? Was the confrontation spontaneous, or did it follow a longer chain of events? Were all parties involved accurately identified online, or have assumptions been made based on appearance or language? Has any official source confirmed the exact location and circumstances of the video? And perhaps most importantly, why did this clip become so quickly attached to a broader narrative about entire groups of people? Because here's the part that raises serious concern. When viral content is interpreted through the lens of identity and nationality, it often stops being about facts and starts becoming about confirmation of existing beliefs. People begin to see what they already expect to see. Now, let's talk about the wider impact. Situations like this, even when based on incomplete or misleading information, can have real consequences. First, they can deepen mistrust between communities. When viewers believe they are witnessing patterns of behavior, even from a single unclear clip, it can reinforce division and resentment. Second, it can put pressure on political leaders and law enforcement agencies, forcing them to respond to narratives that may not be fully accurate, simply because public perception has already been shaped. Third, it can place innocent individuals at risk, especially when identities are wrongly assigned in viral content. Once misinformation spreads, corrections rarely reach the same audience. And economically, these narratives can also affect tourism, investment confidence, and local business environments, particularly in regions already sensitive to international perception. But here's where things take a more serious turn. This is not the first time a viral video has sparked this kind of reaction. Similar cases have appeared in the past where clips of isolated incidents were used to generalize entire communities or countries. In almost every case, later investigations revealed missing context, partial footage, or misunderstandings that were not initially visible online. Yet by that point, the damage to public perception had already been done. So, what is the public reaction to this particular video? Online, responses have been deeply divided. Some users express anger and use the clip to argue that it confirms long-standing frustrations about inequality or social tension. Others strongly criticize the interpretation, saying the video is being manipulated to push divisive narratives. There are also voices calling for calm, urging people not to rush to judgment based on short clips circulating without verification. Meanwhile, media platforms face their own challenge. In the race for engagement, viral content often spreads faster than verified reporting. By the time fact checks appear, the emotional narrative has already taken hold. And this creates a cycle that repeats itself again and again. Now, what happens next? In situations like this, there are usually three possible paths. First, fact-checking organizations or local authorities may step in to clarify the origin of the video, confirm its authenticity, and provide context if available. Second, the story may gradually fade as newer viral content replaces it, even if unanswered questions remain. Third, in some cases, further footage or eyewitness accounts may emerge, completely changing the original interpretation of the incident. But at this stage, without verified information, anything beyond that remains speculation. And that is exactly where responsible reporting becomes critical. Because once a video becomes a symbol of something larger, it stops being just a video. It becomes part of a narrative war, where different groups try to define what it means, sometimes without checking whether it is even accurate. And that brings us to the most important question of all. Are we reacting to what actually happened, or are we reacting to what we think it represents? Because if the answer is the second one, then the real story is no longer about the video at all. It is about how easily information can be shaped, amplified, and weaponized in the digital age. And that should make anyone pause before sharing, commenting, or concluding too quickly. So, as this story continues to circulate, one thing remains clear. The truth in viral moments like this is rarely found in the first clip you see. It is usually buried beneath missing context, incomplete timelines, and the assumptions we bring with us when we watch it. And until those gaps are filled, the only responsible position is to ask more questions than we answer. Because in a world where a few seconds of video can shape global opinion, understanding what is missing is just as important as what is visible. Now the question is simple. What do you think is really happening in viral moments like this? Real evidence of a bigger issue, or a story being shaped faster than the facts can catch up? Let's talk in comments. Unity over division.